Yes.
On CVSN and GenNext websites for those who could not join us today. And Jim will be taking questions in the middle and at the end of our hour. There is a Q&A panel or chat box at the bottom of your screen. And that's where you can type in your questions for Jim. For those of you who don't know Jim Pancero, let me give you just a little bit of his background. Jim has been a successful sales and sales leadership speaker, trainer, and consultant for almost 40 years, helping distribution and equipment manufacturers increase their competitive advantage, as well as strengthen their sales leadership skills. He has been a highly rated University of Innovative Distribution faculty member for 13 years at the University of Innovative Distribution, and has presented at several CVSN, DTE, HDAW, and other industry meetings. The title of today's presentations is How to Coach, Lead, and Motivate Your Sales Team Through Today's Virus-Impacted World so you can sell even more. Please welcome Jim Pancero.
Well, good. Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're on our broadcast and able to join us. And this is being recorded. I want to talk about what's happening and what's going on in our world right now, and hopefully offer some ideas or suggestions that can help you and your team as you move forward with this. I think one of the things that's really critical that we need to identify is that you do have the opportunity to have the workbook, as Angelo said, at pancero.com /CVSN. And it's a resource that'll be there after the broadcast as well. In case you're listening to this broadcast later, that workbook will be available. And I'm happy to have you use it with your team to help share information with them so they can see what's happening as well. If we talk about this, I think a couple of things we need to start off with is this is brand new territory for all of us. So as we talk about this, I want to share with you what I see happening and what the experiences have been from other of these catastrophes. If we look at business disruptions over our careers, like 2001 when 9/11 tragedy hit, the 2008 banking recession, there's been other recessions that have happened. Even though this is a unique situation that we're in right now, there's a lot we can learn from the past crises about how we can manage and what we do as leaders of our companies through this. Now, my first hope is that you and your family are all safe and you're healthy and everything's okay. This is a very challenging time for us. But if we look at the business implications of this, I believe there's some things you as the leader of your company can do about it to help at least minimize the consequences to your team and to your customers. That's what we want to share today. One of the ways I would describe this, though, is everybody on this call is at a different level of evolution with your business and where your skills are. One of the best ways I can describe how I see my programs fit in and can hopefully offer help is the analogy of a hearing aid. If you've ever had any family members that have needed a hearing aid, what happens is they go in and get a test. And the test measures sound frequencies of each. They send sounds to them in headphones to listen to the frequency to see how receptive your hearing is to that specific frequency. And they produce a graph like this that shows where you are against the best practices of where they think you should be. Then what happens is your hearing aid is specific and customized to you that only increases the volume in the frequencies where you need amplifications. In other areas where you're okay, nothing would happen. Well, I see that we're doing the same thing here with sales and sales leadership. That I'm sure that as we go through this, some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, I bet you're already doing, and I congratulate you for that. Other areas hopefully might be that this could help fill in a gap so that overall you can get to this level of best practices. So some of this material is going to be relevant, others might not be for where you are, but let me make a pass of what I think needs to happen of this survival strategy. How do we survive and sell our way out of this kind of challenge we're in? So there's really two things I want to talk to you about today. The first is I want to talk about overall this virus impact and the phases and what I see businesses are going through and what you as a manager can do to hopefully improve your performance and your organization's performance at each of these phases. Then we're going to talk about what you as a manager can do in leading people and helping them through this process. So then we have some final suggestions and some ways that you can apply this to your team. If we look at what's happening, we have to go back and look to say, if we look at the cause of what this major disruption is going on, of this virus, this pandemic happening across the world, truly, this is a unique to our lifetime's experience. But if we look at the fact that we have a major business disruption, we can learn from the past and see what we found from the others. The first thing, sorry about that. First thing I want to identify is, so what is the job of a sales manager? Because I think that definition is going to help us as we go through this guide. I have a very simple definition. I believe the job of a sales manager is to help your people achieve more than they would have achieved if you just left them alone. So your job is to that delta performance from where they are to where they could be. That's, I believe, is the job of an effective sales manager. So now one of the questions to ask is, as the leader of your company, of the leader of your team, as a sales manager with them reporting to you, where are you spending your time? Well, if you look at this form, check it out. How much of your time is spent in each of these areas? How much time do you spend in a normal week? Let's just assume before all of this disruption happened over the last few weeks. If we go back about a month ago or more, where were you spending your time? How much time did you spend on paperwork, administrative things? How much time did you spend actually acting like a sales rep, where you might have been handling your own territory or your own accounts, especially if you're a smaller company? How much time did you spend on solving problems and fighting fires and dealing with back orders and administrative and inventory issues and product ordering, and other non-sales responsibilities? And then to ask, how much time were you able to devote for things like coaching and training and leading the sales team on account planning and some of those efforts? The reality I watch is most managers are spending the majority of their time up in the reactive upper half of this page and very little time in proactive efforts. So I'll let you know a little secret. The whole goal of this process and what we're talking about here is, how do we get you to be more of a proactive manager so that we can sell our way out of this by driving more positive efforts and activities by your team? So to do that, how do we have an impact with all this stuff, especially with all the disruptions going on? Well, I think there's some lessons. And one of the lessons is that there's four levels of employee motivation, or there's four rules. How do you motivate people to do something, especially in all of our disrupted times? Well, the simple concept is, you can't motivate anybody to do anything. Let's just get straight up from the beginning. You cannot motivate your people to do anything right now. And the reason is because people are already highly motivated. The problem comes up as they're motivated for their reasons, their challenges, their unique situations, their background, their culture, their beliefs, all these other components. So what we as management team can do is, all we can do is build an environment for people to motivate themselves. So if we look at this issue and all this disruption that's happened in business and how we try to get people to be back to work and more productive and try to rebuild what we had just a few months ago in place again, we can't just do it by forcing motivation or demanding of people. What we have to do is we have to build an environment. So the question becomes, what kind of environment have you built for each of your people, and how are they performing under that? See, one of the things I watch happen is, anytime there's been a major disruption in business, a recession of any kind, downturn in the business, watch it really affect salespeople. And I don't say this in a negative way, but most salespeople tend to be a little more emotional. So when sales are up and they're having a boom year and things are going fantastic, look how they're happy, they're energized, they're working extra hours. If it's Friday at 4:30, they'll still make some more sales calls because people are buying stuff. But what happens when there's a downturn, when things slow down, when customers are not as receptive? Well, this is what I watch happen. Problems occur. First of all, one of the biggest things I watch happen is, in stressful times, in down markets, most sales reps spend fewer hours selling. They take more breaks. Things are a little slower because, after all, nobody's buying. They'll do errands. They'll do side projects. They stay busy, but it's not in that proactive, productive selling. So it's like a double whammy. Not only does the business drop because of what's happening in the economy, but then also the sales reps drop it even lower just because of a lack of energy. Now, this is stress. This is I understand what's happening. In fact, the last couple of weeks I've experiencing, really been fighting this myself to try to bump my hours up of how productive I am, because of all this and all the challenges and reading all the news and all the other stuff of how it slows us down. The second thing I watch happen is when there is a challenge, a lot of sales reps tend to focus only on their smaller accounts or the ones that are the most loyal to them. They don't take any risk and talk to anybody else. They just talk to their core customer base. They kind of retreat to their friends in conversations because, after all, nobody's buying anything, is the assumption. The third thing I watch, and this is kind of an amazing phenomena, but I watch it happen with salespeople, is salespeople start complaining to their customers. I think it's part of the whole relationship selling philosophy that's been in place for decades, where the sales reps really feel their good friends are their customers. So they tend to tell the customer exactly what's going on. So I actually have heard salespeople recently telling customers, when the customer said, "How's it going?" The sales rep said, "Gee, nobody's buying anything right now." And I thought, well, that was great coaching to give the customer. It's telling them if nobody else is buying, why would they? The reality is there's a lot of people still buying stuff. Congratulations that you are in an essential industry of transportation like this. And I'm sure on the production side, your people are just working as hard as they possibly can. Now the question is what's happening on the selling side of your business. And one of the things to caution your salespeople about is this is not the time to complain to our customers about how slow or how bad things are. We don't lie, we don't exaggerate, but at the same time, we don't have to initiate conversations to tell people how much it sucks right now being me as a sales rep. That's one of the warnings or suggestions specifically for reps to deal with. And the other thing is to watch happen is when crises occur, sales reps go into firefighter mode, where all they're doing is really defending and protecting and dealing with the crises of special pricing and expediting and those kind of problem solving things. And they go into support mode. There's no initiation mode. So then your sales are impacted in a negative way as well because of that. I'm curious, as we're going through this, if you feel that these are some of the situations you've been seeing with your people. Now, if not, congratulations. This is not something that's happening universal, but this is what I watch tends to happen with the majority of salespeople. So when we talk about what is our job of a manager, how do we create an environment for people to motivate themselves? We have to first realize these are the challenges that they're most likely going to be dealing with. Now, this has been a major disruption to business. But what I watch happen is that these kind of disruptions tend to have phases that they go through. And I found if as a manager, if you are aware of these phases, then you can do two things. One is you can be more effective within that phase itself. But then the second thing you can do is actually be more proactive, moving to the next phase faster so that you can get ahead of this process. See, one of the most positive things happening with all the crises that are going on in business today is that your competitors are faced with the exact same challenges you are. Nobody has an unfair advantage because of what's going on today. This is affecting all of us. So because of that, that means it's still a level, relative, competitive playing field so that you can do things that can help you increase your competitive edge, even if it's a small amount, just because your competitors are dealing with the same disruptions and pretty much the same crises you are. So now the question is, how are you going to sell your way out of this? And how are you going to put more proactive selling efforts than your competition? One of the ways I've described this whole process is like we're like in this major NASCAR race as an economy. And it started raining. So they stopped the race overnight. So we can now take our car into the garage and we've got till 8 o'clock tomorrow morning when they restart the race to improve our car in any way we possibly can. So what are you going to do? Look how many people they're taking the time to watch Netflix movies and they're dealing with all these other issues and they're dealing with all the problems, but there's not much being done to improve our position when the race restarts because this is temporary. It's going to get over. So now the only question is when this is over, what is your business going to look like and how could you improve it compared to what it was so that hopefully when we do get this restart, you can improve your competitive edge. I watch there's 5 phases in this. And what I want to do is go through each of these 5 phases of what I watch happens in a crisis and what you as a manager can do at each of those phases. And then we're going to stop and I'm going to ask, so what phase do you think you're in? So as we're working on this, you can type into the question and answer phase as we go through this, which phase you see you're currently working on. Now, the first phase of this, and frankly, it's the phase that happened in the first couple of weeks that I think we are now past, is the first phase of any crisis is stabilization. This is when the first phase of this occurs, when the majority of focus of what's happening is just on complete business disruption. And everybody's only worried about what's happening to them personally. So my daughter works in a large company in Chicago, and they closed the office down and said everybody's going to work from their home. So she had to go home and set up a home office. She had to figure out what she was going to do, how she was going to make all this work. So for a couple days, nobody on her team was doing any selling because they were just trying to figure out their own world. Everything was focused on themselves. Complete business disruption. Now, I believe we're past this phase because this only lasted for some cases only a week or two. But during this phase, there's still some things in each of these phases that you as a manager could be doing that would increase your persuasiveness and impact as the leader of your team. And so I want to go through each of these because hopefully you're still doing these earlier phases, even though we're past it, that you're still applying these leadership philosophies. One of the first things is when this kind of crisis happens is we need to keep reaffirming our people, our team of what's going on, that this is temporary. We're going to get through this. We're going to work through this. And also to reach out to your best customers, where the best thing you can do is have everybody saying, how can we help? What do you need? What's disruptive? And what can we do to try to be of assistance? This is also a time we have to keep reminding this is temporary, and keep asking, how can we help you get out of it? This is a time to be responsive. The first phase is not a time to sell. It's just a time to support and say, what can we do to be of assistance? Now, the second phase, though, is when, okay, now that everybody's stable, what do we need to do to take care of our customers? The second phase is when we get into crisis management, problem solving, and order expediting. Stuff that's in the pipelines. How do we get enough people to keep and fulfill what the customers have already ordered or what they expect to be happening? And this is a lot of labor, a lot of late things. How many of your employees are having to work from home right now and have kids there and a spouse that's trying to run their business as well? I mean, these are just productivity now is a very difficult time in getting people to be able to do the jobs you need. Problem though in this second phase is reps still tend to be very reactive in this problem solving mode of what they're doing. And there tends to be little or no new proactive selling or initiation of any selling efforts. Everything is kind of frozen because sales reps are still just firefighting. And the team is focusing on how do we fulfill what we've already got promised with the resources, limited resources, a lot of cases that we have. A lot of tracking inventory, trying to find out how you backfill orders, trying to get enough people to get the work done that's already been promised. This is a full plate and has been a crisis for several weeks for a lot of businesses. During this time, the leadership thing is critical. This is a time that, and I think this phase is kind of, we're ending it. I think we're moving into the third phase now. But the second phase is still monitoring, assessing where your team is individually. How are they doing? Because you'll find some people are energized by what's happening and other ones are just completely immobilized. This is where that environment that you need to be there as a coach and leader for each of your people, because there's a good chance different people might need different support from you emotionally in what you talk about and how you help them. This is also a critical time to keep checking with your important customers, not just the sales reps, but as a manager. Now, you're not going to contact customers as a manager to say what's happening with the order that's back ordered. Your goal as a manager when you contact them is to talk at a higher level and ask, how are they doing? Where do they see this happening? When do they think this is going to end? What are they going to do in the meantime to help better position their business? And just talk more of the longer term process, not just the problem solving. That's your sales reps and your support team's responsibility. This is a time also that your leadership is calmness, that even in the face of crisis, we can be calm. Your success as a leader is if you can maintain a calmness, be affirming, be positive in what you talk about, and keep the conversation future focused. If we called a customer today and said, hey, we want to talk to you, they'd say, I'm not buying anything. My God, we're shut down. So, okay, we're not talking about now. What happens when you do restart? How can we help you be in a better position and ready for that? We need to talk more future focus as a goal of us, our coaching and of our people's selling efforts, and also just to be responsive to what the customers need. But this is also in the second phase, the most proactive managers. This is when you start formulating what your performance expectations are going to be and expected work efforts of how we're going to start raising the bar and increasing our volumes to try to increase our impact. Now, I believe most businesses are somewhere between now this third and fourth phase of what I see happening as of this recording. But the third phase is now, okay, we're getting used to this. Now the whole goal is, how do we get back to work? How do we get some kind of productivity? Order fulfillment's probably continuing on a best efforts basis and dealing with all the disruptions because of it. But this is also the time for the managers to start putting more emphasis and more energy into what your salespeople are doing. This is the time to be having, if you're not doing it, I hope you're still having daily meetings with your team using Zoom, the platform we're using, or Skype or FaceTime or GoToMeeting, any of those platforms. Having so that people see and there's more of a connection by doing video, not just by doing voice. Having regular meetings, if anything, to try to maintain the community of your business. I'm impressed. My daughter manages a team of salespeople that are very rookies. They're all less than 6 months of experience when this hit. And they were doing outbound telemarketing for the company she works for, and she managed that team, very hands-on as a manager. Well, she's now got all these rookies working out of their homes because they closed the office down a few weeks ago. So now she has 3 meetings a day. She has an 8 a.m. Zoom meeting that they start off with. Frankly, she just wants to make sure everybody's up and ready and working. And they talk about what their goals are going to be for the morning and any news that they have. Then at lunchtime, she says, we just try to have that as a motivational moment. We look at some videos. Some people share funny videos they've seen about the quarantines and all the stuff going on that people have been producing. She might show a motivational video, frankly, from one of my friends to just try to put energy into her team. And they talk about how strong the afternoon can be. And then they end the day at about 5 o'clock and have kind of celebration of, okay, what did we accomplish for the day? And what are we going to do tomorrow? Now, you don't need that if you have a regular outside team that's used to working more independent. But she found as this inside team, that was the only way she could maintain and help them achieve more than they would have achieved if she just ignored them, because they're all so new and they're just not used to being independent. The idea is this is a time to be pushing for a full day of work and talking about how productive you're going to be and how many customers you're going to be able to outreach. It's setting daily goals. It's interesting that in the middle of a battle, the general doesn't tend to turn to the troops and say, so what do you think we ought to do next? They look to the leadership in crisis to say, tell us what to do. What needs to be done that's going to give us the best chance of coming out of this in a more positive way? So it's saying this is what we need for volumes, and increasing those volumes and just pushing the people to try to help them achieve more than would have achieved if we didn't have any of these measurements in place. It's how do we get the business and try to push it up into a more productive position. This is also a time, though, that reps can be more proactive in reaching out to their customers. And usually about now is when the second wave of customers is reached. Usually only the best and most important customers in the first couple phases are really contacted unless somebody has an outstanding order. Now it's saying, let's start talking to everybody again. Still conversations are how are you doing and how can we help, but it tends to be expanding the connectivity of what's going on, which is a positive. What can you do as a sales leader in the third phase? Well, it's really critical to continue daily conversations with all of your team and making sure you have daily connections, listening to them so they can share what's going on and what isn't working. I think this is also a time to start increasing the expectations of how many customers and how frequently you're going to be outreaching to these customers. But in this third phase, I believe now is the most critical effort of this third phase is how do we start planning for the restart? Now, everybody seems to be agreeing on 2 things. This is going to restart. We're going to get out of this. But the second thing is everybody's expecting customers' expectations and customers' values and customers' needs of what they want from a vendor is probably going to change. Look how much we relied on relationship selling, where the best way to maintain an account is have a sales rep just show up on site, bring them coffee, chit chat with them, be their friend, hang out with them, and just show them how important they are. Well, I have a feeling a lot of customers aren't going to see that as a value of your company in the future because they don't want that much social interaction. This is going to be with us for a while, this change in culture. So because of that, how do you need to change the way you sell so you still maintain your customer relationships, even though the customer's connectivity might have different expectations? What are you doing to plan so that when the restart happens, you're in a better competitive position? Very simple. How do we make sure this becomes an improvement, even though this has been such a devastating environment on people's health, on our economy, disrupting the business? How do we still come out of this more positive than the others? Major goal of this third phase. Then the fourth phase hits, and I'm guessing your CVSN members are somewhere between these two phases, because then the third phase is let's get back to work. The fourth phase is now how do we increase our productivity? How do we get better at doing this? Because this is our reality for a while. This is when the homework environments and the working environments of people and where they are tend to be stabilized. So we now know we have to deal with. When we reach that stabilization, it usually means we can start to increase the productivity and effectiveness once we stabilize and how the processes are being done. This is when you need to be increasing what your work and your performance expectations are of your people. This is also a time that customers tend to start opening up to new ideas of not necessarily new customers, but new business within existing customers of how you might help and how they see they're going to adjust things to take advantage of this new normal we're about to move into. One of the things I think we're going to see happening is in the past, for the last 20 years, companies had no problem buying from 5 different vendors if they could get a little cheaper price from the different stuff they were buying from each of those vendors. I think we're going to see the idea of more consolidation of vendors, not having as many business interactions, sourcing from fewer locations, more volume. I think we're going to see as a natural outgrowth of this. So this is a great time to be talking to your customers about what other products can you get from us so that you don't have to deal with so many different vendors. Is a great window of selling opportunity that could be pursued. During this fourth phase, I think this is the time that you need to actively be planning with your team what your selling efforts and selling effectiveness is going to be. How can you be looking at how can we bring new solutions? How can we redefine? How can we improve the way we do business with our customers now as we predict and guess what this new normal is going to look like for our customers and for our industry? This fourth phase, though, is also because of the stability of the environment. This is a time to start sharpening your axe. This is the time to start pushing more skill training into your people and asking each of your employees, what can you do and what do you think we need to do to raise the bar so that we remain and actually accelerate our competitiveness in this new normal? How are we going to improve this? How are we going to change? What skills do we need to help you build to make you more persuasive? These are all critical aspects of this fourth phase of what you as a manager can do. But look, now it's more proactive things. It's more directional, how we're going to sell our way through this and out of this as part of the process. Now, I don't think we're to the fifth phase yet, but I would like to cover it just to make a completion of these 5 phases and then want to open up for questions. So this is a great time to start typing your questions in to the Q&A line. And we're in just a moment, I'm going to ask and Angelo what kind of questions we have, and we'll see if we can get you some answers. Within this, the things return to normal. That's the fifth phase. This is as you start to ask and learn about what customers' new expectations are. This is the time customers will be saying, we'd really like to do this now, or this would improve what we're doing. So the question is, how can you use this business disruption of what's happening to better position your company, and your competitive uniqueness is going to be a critical differential of this fifth phase. So as a manager, what can you do? Well, I believe this whole idea of competitive advantages and differentiations are going to shift as business restarts. So this is the time coming out of this. How do we improve our sales tools? One of the critical sales tools you need to improve is, what is our message of uniqueness? Why, based on the options available to me, do I want to buy from you? The second major tool that we need to improve and increase is, what are the steps of our new business selling process? What do you do from the time you would identify a new opportunity to the time you close on the sale? If we draw this as a horizontal line, idea on one side of the line, close on the other, for going after new business, what are the steps of your process? What's really fascinating is if you take and just this visual of ID to close like a horizontal line, and you draw it out and ask any of your sales reps. You can go to a sales rep and saying, you've been selling for us for 5 years. What's your process? What do you do? What do you do from the time you identify a new opportunity till the time you close on the sale? What are the steps that you go through? And what it will find happen is if you ask 5 different sales reps this question, you're probably going to get 5 different answers. But what I find most fascinating is the average sales rep's answer is, it depends. So how are you going to sell this new account? What do you do? What's your process? You've been closing business. What do you do? And the sales rep is always going to say, it depends. It depends on the customer, depends on the situation, depends on the competitors, depends on their pricing expectations, depends. Does it bother anybody else? That's also the name of a diaper. It's just reality. So they tend to be very reactive. I joke in my program and say most sales reps are like the Halari bird. If you've heard me present at CVSN before, you've heard me talk about this story. Ever hear the definition of a Halari bird? Well, it's a 3-foot bird, lives in 4-foot grass, spends his whole life saying, where the hell are we? It was on the Discovery Channel. But most sales reps are only thinking this one move ahead. They're Halari birds. So the whole goal of defining your steps of your ID to close process is to try to help and get your salespeople to think and plan more moves ahead. What can we do? Because if you and I are playing chess and I only think one move, but you can think 2 moves, you'll win every game. So how many moves ahead have you been thinking in your selling process? The problem with a lot of sales reps is they've been rather reactive. How many of your sales reps follow a 3-step selling process of show up, suck up, and pucker up? It says reactive, anything you need, anything coming up, anything that can help with language we're going to talk about in a minute. So this idea of if we define our steps, we can make those steps more proactive. We can hopefully increase our competitive advantage. Tied to that is the idea of doing account planning. Now, most companies do territory planning where you go to the sales reps a couple times a year and say, tell me all the volumes you're going to get out of your customers so we can predict what our sales volumes are going to be. Now, we're not talking about that macro view of their whole territory. We're talking about one account at a time. What are you going to do to go after this really important account and grow it? Because if we develop individual plans along a structure that we've been using, we can tend to be both more efficient, more effective, and generate stronger results. Account plan, defining your steps of your process and doing account planning for your most important accounts are 2 key ways or tools to do that. And then to decide how can we and what can we bring our customers that we can maintain and grow our existing customers. Now, eventually, ultimately, these are the kind of tools that need to be enhanced and developed. Now, if we were talking 3 months ago before all this crisis happened, these are the tools that help you increase your competitive advantage. That hasn't changed because of our unique situation we're in. It's just become more critical today as an outcome of this unique crisis that we're in, that these are the answers and these are the tools that if you can strengthen and improve them, will increase your competitive edge and differential in your marketplace. Now, this is a great time. And Angelo, I want to turn to you and to say, anybody have any questions or anything that you think might be relevant to ask about?
Jim, we do have a couple of questions. One from Taylor Hessling. With all of the new parameters coming out and new rules, we find ourselves bouncing back and forth from 4th phase to 2nd phase, problem solving the new rules and finding ways to abide by them by still being able to stay open and busy. How can you find a balance where you don't feel like you're falling behind and you can level out at phase 4?
Great question. And it's something that we don't know what's going to happen next week because we could be thrown back into phase 1 or phase 2 again very easily if there is some kind of major news of a crisis of a different type that comes up. I think one of the things, and this is where as owners or as leaders of your company, we need to be careful that we segment and we organize our people. So at the same time, you have somebody working in the shop or working in the warehouse that is just overworked picking orders. We look separately at our salespeople because I find in a lot of cases, the warehouse is just going crazy trying to keep everything fulfilled, trying to find drivers enough to deliver everything. But the sales reps, a lot of times the sales reps are even having to work out of their house because they were not considered non-essential positions within in some states. I know that, okay, what are they doing? So this is really your ability to compartmentalize different people, to look at each of the different positions and to be able to come to your sales reps and say, if you're not solving directly a problem, we want you to be in proactive outreach and initiation. Or even if everybody's fighting fires, what can your sales team do for just 1 hour a day to do some proactive outreach to customers? Even if all you can do is have each of your salespeople sometime during the day take a 1 hour block, it's just somehow, how can we carve out more proactive time? Because even if it's only an hour a day, if our competitors can't do that, we've still increased our competitive edge. Great question. Any others?
We have another one from Walter Michael. How can you get out of phase two with outside intervention happening? For example, if you have a plant in Mexico where there is a mandated shutdown through the end of this month, how can you move to phase three?
And what's happening is each business is going to be, each industry is different in these challenges. I think what we have to look at is you have two different things. You have the production and you have fulfillment. You also have the conversations and selling and support of the customer. As an example, one of my customers distributes janitorial and sanitary supplies. So they have three major markets. They have school systems, which are shut down right now. They have businesses, which are shut down right now, most of them. And these were their major sources of revenue of cleaning supplies to maintain those environments. And then they have the first responders in the medical community that's in crisis. The problem is the crisis demands in the specific products that are hard to get of the cleaning supplies and gloves and masks and those things. That volume is nowhere near replacing what the volume was before. So one of the things we have their sales team doing when they have any open time is we have them reaching out to their customers of their closed businesses and just talking to them about saying, when you're ready to restart, are you going to have all the supplies you need? So right now they're selling back order and pre-order stuff, saying because you're one of our existing customers, you are in a premium level. And as a premium level, we will take back orders and we will fill the orders based on what has been ordered and what has come. So how can we help you get ready for this restart? So they're still able, even though they're still dealing with the crises of not being able to get stuff, at least locking in customers of our commitment and our tracking and our working to help you get what you need. This is a challenging environment. I don't mean to minimize any of that for anybody on this call. But at the same time, at any of these steps, if there is anything we can do that moves us faster to the next step or in a more proactive way starts the language of it, we're going to be in a better position, even though we probably don't actually control when each of these phases ends for our industry. Any other questions, Angelo, or should we get back into it?
Just go get back into the presentation. Great.
I appreciate it. And thanks for anybody. Keep asking your questions. And Angelo, thanks for being our interpreter here with all of this. I'll mute your mic now just to help you out. So as we continue, and I hope you keep asking your questions. And by the way, afterwards, you can also email me, and I'm very happy to answer your questions. And you'll get my email address. It's on the workbook. And at the end of this, if I can answer a specific question that you haven't been able to get answered. So what's this mean? We've got these phases going on, and no matter what phase we're in, what about you as a manager and a leader? And this is where it comes in to say, this is a critical time for your effectiveness as a leader to increase your communications and your connectivity with your people. I watched two things happen during a crisis. The first is employees and customers have this increased demand for new and additional information of just the latest of what's going on. But you also watch management in most of these cases tends to slow down their communication because they don't have any new information or they don't have any answers or they just don't know until they find out. So then there's this vacuum that forms where people are looking for information they can't find. So one of the things, even if we don't have good answers right now, is to at least make sure we stay connected with our customers and we're giving them the latest of what we know. But it's also critical at this time that we stay and talk positive. Now, I'm not talking being unrealistic with this, but still talking positive. Yeah, things are tough right now, but this is going to get over. What can we do to get ready when it does get over? It's allowing the reps and even your customers to vent their frustrations because you didn't cause this and you can't really fix the outcome of this correcting and us all getting back to work. But what we can do is listen to our people because they're going to talk to somebody, and a lot of them are really frustrated because of these challenging work environments we're all facing, because of disruptions to our lives. Imagine if you Imagine the families that have two, a husband and a wife that both have full-time jobs and are trying to work out of the home and be productive, and they've got two small kids that are not in school and are home as well. It's interesting how many different service people I've talked to just in this last week where I can hear the kids making noise in the background. And I've always laughed and say, hey, congratulations. And they go, oh, no, we're so sorry. And I go, no, you're doing the best efforts. And I'm just so glad that everything's going well for you and you do have a job and that you're able to help. We got to keep reminding people of that this is temporary and that we appreciate the extra efforts everybody's going through. But I also think this is a time that you need to be affirming and pushing your people to do just a little bit more and helping them define what that more is. See, one of the things that's interesting is how do you help create an environment for people to motivate themselves? Well, one of the ways you do that is by making sure that they stay more positive. One of the things that's been proven is it's very difficult for you to be depressed and busy at the same time. People that have the most depression usually also have inactivity that goes with it. So one of the ways you can help increase the environment for your people is to make sure you keep them busy, because the busier they are and the more involved, the less depressed they're likely to be on just how disrupted everything is today. The second thing with this is you can strengthen your leadership by increasing this communications. And it's just they keep asking your people, what's happening to them? What do they think they need now? What can you do to help them become even more competitive? At the same time you're talking to your employees, we need to be talking to our customers and asking those same questions. And just seeing how responsive and what we can do to try to define and improve how we can be more effective. At the same time, when you have these conversations, it's really critical your position be one, the conversation be more positive, more tactical, and more future focused of in your language is going to be critical components of you being persuasive through these times. Within this, let me just think what clicks. There we go. This is also the time to be looking at your sales tools. As I mentioned earlier, these tools, they were the same tools I was talking about 6 months ago of what it would take to gain and increase your competitive advantage. It's just interesting how they become just more critical today because of the immediacy of everything that's happening to us. Some of the skills I believe you need to be working with your people on. One is their questioning skills and their control of a sales call. How persuasive are your people today? Because a lot of your people were used to being persuasive by being on site and just relationship, being friends with their buddies and showing how they can help. Now with telephones as our major connection, using some kind of online chat like Zoom or FaceTime or any of those go-to-meeting type of sites. A lot of people don't have the persuasive skills and not as sure. This is the time to keep reaffirming the skills of your people. What are our questioning skills and how can we be more focused and impactful in the questions we ask? What are the steps of a sales call and how do we control that so we make sure we have persuasive calls even when the customer's stressed? The second skill is this issue of messaging of why do I want to buy from you? If you want to test out the challenge of where you are with this message, just go to 3 different salespeople on your team individually and just ask them to say, I got asked this by a customer or prospect yesterday. I'm curious what you would have said. And the prospect said, look, you're the 3rd vendor I've talked to about this stuff this week. Why, based on all the competitive alternatives available to me, do I want to buy from you? And just ask them, what are the 2 or 3 strongest bullets of an answer you would say? Here's what I'll warn you. If you go to 3 different sales reps and ask these questions, you're going to get 3 completely different sets of answers. Because in the past, this was not worked on by management. So under the independent gunfighter mentality of the old baby boomer work environments, basically, as long as a sales rep was productive and they were off doing it their own way, as long as they were making their sales numbers, you tended to leave them alone. So everybody kind of evolved to different messages of uniqueness and what the value is. A lot of sales reps change their message for every customer they go into. Look how many sales reps go into a customer and say, so what do you need? What keeps you awake at night? What would you most like to improve on your business today? And then the customer tells you what they would most like from a vendor. How many of your sales rep goes, oh, congratulations, that's exactly what we do. And then you've redefined your brand and redefined your company for the next customer. Look how inefficient this has been. Now, when we had lower sales volumes, we could get away with that inefficiency. But if we look at what you're going to need for the next couple of years in productivity and increased sales volumes from your people, we can't afford the time to keep reinventing our message for every customer we go into. What is it you do best, and how do we communicate that? This is a spectacular time to put some effort and some clarity of just what is our uniqueness and why, based on all the options available to me, would I want to consider buying from you. The second thing with this, or the next thing with this, is to define these steps processes, draw out this idea to close process and say, what are our steps and what do we do now? Because the goal is, if we can front end this process and be more proactive at the beginning of our selling efforts, we should increase our competitive advantage and the ability to close the business sooner at the end of the process. So what can you do to define this so can be more proactive? Before all the crises hit in associations, my most popular topic was the title of the program, We Need Arsonists, Not Firefighters. How do we get our sales reps to be more proactive? Getting to be more proactive and thinking and planning more moves ahead is a critical component, and defining this ID to close process is a way to do that. And then the final thing is, okay, you've got your existing customers. How do you maintain and support customers in a new way with new language that's going to be more persuasive? Well, I believe there's a way to do that, and I offer it to you. It's an idea, for lack of a better term, I call selling campaigns. Now, what happens is most companies have product campaign times where they've divided the year in usually 6 to 8 different segments where they'll run specials. You might run a special on filters one month, and the next month you run it on oil, or maybe you have a special on brake pads, or just any of this other, or tools. Where we're not talking about product highlighting kind of special campaigns to highlight different products and to see if we can accelerate sales in those, though those are still positive. There is no negatives to any of that. This is just an addition to it. And the idea is trying to break up the normal process of what an average sales rep does, calling on an existing customer they sell a lot to. Because this problem we mentioned earlier is, for the average sales rep, every time they go into the customer, they only ask them 4 questions. Anything you need? Anything coming up? Anything I can help with? How's the family? And look how those 4 questions, even though they're important, how many sales calls do I have to make on you only asking you those 4 questions before my visit just doesn't have the value to you that it used to? So for our existing customers, especially the ones we call on frequently, we need to somehow help our people change up the language. Now, we can't just make this a salesperson's responsibility and expect them to be creative and keep coming up with new messaging. This needs to be management led. But it's the idea of looking at, especially for now on these short-term crises where you're talking to customers fairly frequently, what could you identify that each week we have something different to talk about the value of buying from us? We're not just talking about promoting specific products or product lines here. We're talking about promoting your services. So what is your expediting program? How could you accelerate an order if I have an emergency need? Maybe spending a week explaining how that works with a customer. Maybe next week you might talk about what your return policies are and how easy you're making it for the customer. Maybe the next week you talk about how you've improved your ordering system, or how of what's going on. Just somehow that there is something that says we are an added value to you, and there's uniqueness in buying from us. Too many times the sales reps only sell their products in themselves. So they'll go into the customer saying, this brand is the best brand. It's going to be more durable. It's going to save you money. It's a great product. And you get me. But they tend to very rarely spend a lot of time selling the distributorship as to what's the value of you and your business to that customer. So in a lot of cases, the sales rep sells a customer on a product, and as soon as the customer starts ordering the product from you, they start shopping online to see if they can save a few pennies buying it from somebody else. This idea, we need to be bringing them and selling them on the value of why they can buy it from us. So even if you can find it a few pennies cheaper someplace else, this is why buying from us, even though we're not the lowest price, that we can prove we're still your lowest total cost because of the way we're going to support and take care of you. This idea of talking and emphasizing just different services or different areas of how your business can help your customers in their effectiveness is going to be a key opportunity in selling. In some of the other programs, we're going to talk about why people buy, but there are some basic messages that if you can focus during these campaigns in your messaging of why buy on any aspect of these 4 points, you're going to increase your competitive advantage. Why, based on all the options available to me, do I want to buy from you? Number one, because you did more than anybody else to lower my risk. Number two was you did more than anybody else to make my life or my work easier. Number three reason is you did more than anybody else to either lower my total costs or increase my profitability. And the fourth reason to buy is you did more than anybody else to increase my competitive advantage. But I would suggest those are the only 4 reasons that people buy: lowering my risk, making my life or work easier, increasing my profitability or lowering my total costs, or increasing my competitive advantage. So the more we can incorporate in our selling campaigns of talking to customers, showing them ways we lower risk. Another way we lower risk with you buying from us is this: talking about your inventory levels, talking about your emergency ship programs, talking about your number of locations, talking about your backup of locations in case something happens to one location, how you can continue taking care and servicing your customers. It's all these areas of looking just to say and reminding them each week when you talk, by the way, this is the value that you can get or you are receiving from buying from us as a partner. So that it's more than just pushing the products and more just than pushing the sales rep saying, I'm personally here to take care of you. It's also pushing your company and the value and uniqueness of buying from you. I found this idea of campaigns is more effective because you just can't go in and say, let me remind you of the 20 things we do that can help make your life easier. Nobody remember any of those. But if we talk about once every week or two and just remind them of one more point, there's a higher likelihood our message is going to be received and going to be okay. So, Angelo, final pass, chance, any comments or questions coming in from anybody before we start to offer some final ideas and get back to work?
I don't see any new questions. I have a question, Jim. Which phase do you think most of the CVSN members are in right now?
I think that we probably could split it. I would bet for a lot of your members, their production side of the business is in phase 2, where they're trying to get their salespeople to be more in phase 3 or even phase 4. Because I know that there's still a lot of business disruptions, getting parts, the whole distribution supply systems in a lot of cases is going through major disruption just because of finding enough drivers and getting stuff and getting people to unload the trucks and load them back up again. I know that anything, because there's such an international aspect to, I know, the CVSN business model, that I'm sure there's a lot of a challenge just getting specific parts or pieces in that you need because of the disruption of international commerce at the moment. So at the same time we have all those, the other side is looking at what can we do on the sales side. It could very well be the sales side is actually moving the team into the 3rd phase, even though on the inventory and on the servicing side of any of your servicing members, that it could very well be still in the 2nd phase of just trying to get stuff fixed and try to get it out the door. The thing and the reality we have is the only question is how could we accelerate returning to the new normal as fast as possible in any way that we possibly can. So at the same time you're dealing with problems and crises in the warehouse of getting stuff shipped, you can still have your salespeople outreaching to customers and talking about how they can help and what they can do. It's a challenging time. Sometimes the biggest goal of the week is we just want to suck less than we did last week. That's still an improvement, especially if you can improve it faster than your competition.
Okay, well, I think that was the one question I had, but I guess we can move on because we've got a little time left.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes left. We're going to end on time. And by the way, for those of you that have questions, my email address is on the workbook and it's also going to be on the ending slide. But if you email me, jim@pancero.com, Pancero, jim@pancero.com. If you have any questions, especially for those of you that might watch this recording afterwards, not live as we are right now, but if you're watching a later recording of this, if you send me an email, I would be honored and happy to answer any of your questions. So let's continue on. So what do you do about this? First of all, I thank you for hanging in here for the hour and listening to us. And the majority of people have stayed on. I'm impressed and appreciate your attention to what we're talking about. For you as the owner of your company, no matter what phase you're in right now, if we look at the longer term process, I believe there are three fundamental things that you can do to increase your competitive advantage and that will ultimately increase your sales. And to do those three things, all three things need to happen. If you do only one of them, yeah, things will improve, but it takes all three to really see a significant improvement. The first thing is working, as we've talked about, on this message of uniqueness of why do I want to buy from you. The second is defining and working to define what your best practices are. Selling is becoming much more structured and management led. It's becoming paint by numbers. The old idea of the independent gunfighter to just figure out what they wanted to say when they wanted to say it and keep making it up on site and changing everything they do for each customer is just an inefficiency that most businesses just can't afford today. So we're seeing much more structure, much more process, much more stepping, much more paint by numbers. Because with that, we can make our team more effective, more efficient, and also more productive. And ultimately, this whole thing is held together because of you. What are you doing to increase your proactive selling process coaching? Not just coaching on the results of asking, what'd you close this week and who's it going to be? But talking to them more about how they're doing it and why they're doing it that way. We need to coach to the process of selling today, not just to the results. And when you do that, you can increase your competitive edge. Now, to help you achieve this, usually means you got to do some training. You have an opportunity I want to share with you about how to do, frankly, free sales training. See, the reality of my business, my marketing strategy, I live in Dallas here, and my marketing strategy until all this stuff happened was every day I would go to downtown Dallas and stand on the corner of Facebook and LinkedIn and hold a sales Bible over my head and start screaming till somebody stopped and gave me money. What's that mean? Well, last year I posted 200 videos on all the social platforms of LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and Vimeo and my website. And right now with the virus, we're posting 3 videos a week of just ways to help sell you and your team to sell your way out of this virus impacted environment we're in. My peers, my competitors, who are also my friends in sales training around the country, they're doing the same thing. So frankly, one of the best things for you available today is all these short 3 to 5 minute videos that we're all producing as we're trying to get your attention as to why you want to hire us. You can use this. So the idea is whenever you're holding a sales meeting with your team, have a part of it be a training, maybe only 20 minutes. And what you do is you take one of these videos that everybody's posting, including me, on the internet, and we'll show you some resources in just a moment where you can find a lot of these videos easily, is you just show one of the videos. And then all you do is ask your people, when you show them the video, 3 questions. The first question is, so what'd you think of the video? They discuss it. Second one is, how relevant are those ideas to what we're doing here in the business we're running? Then the third question is, okay, so what are you going to try different based on what we just talked about? And now you've got, within showing a 2 or 3 minute video and having a discussion for 15 minutes, in 20 minutes, you have a training module that you've been able to produce and help your people with. And then during the week or later on, when you see them, you keep asking them, so what success did you have based on the idea we talked about this week you were going to try? Now we have this ongoing continuous improvement availability with our sales team just by taking advantage of the videos that are being posted to try to get everybody's attention, including mine. Some resources for this. If you don't have the workbook, please take a picture of this screen capture, because if you Google this term, the 34 best sales training videos on YouTube, it was written by Peter Caputa, I think I apologize, Pete, if I mispronounce your name, but he wrote this great article for HubSpot that lists 34 different sales trainers in one of their best free videos. I was very honored. I'm on there at number 10. I had a video that's gone viral. We've now up to about 85,000 views the last time I looked yesterday. But it's called Your Price is Too High, 7 Steps to Defending Price. And there is a video for each of 34 different sales trainers listing what videos they have and what resources. It's a resource you can take advantage of. The second thing, in your workbook, you also have some evaluations. These are evaluations I've made up that are both for sales and for sales leadership. You might go over and evaluate these lists to see where your team is compared to the best practices that we've defined with these two questionnaires. So you can even decide what areas you most want to improve or to work on. I want to remind you one more time that you can download the workbook from this program at pansero.com/CVSN. It is a resource available to you. I joke in my programs and say my workbook is copyrighted to try to slow you down if you want to be an outside professional trainer, but it's not copyrighted to prevent you from using it within your team. So if there's any pages in this workbook that would help you and your team with what you're working on, you not only have my permission to use it, but you have my encouragement. We're all in this together, and we want to help you sell your way out of it. There's another resource I have, and it's because I'm posting 3 videos a week on this for the last several weeks. And all the videos that I've posted that are central to how do you sell in this virus impacted world, we have all recorded in my living room, great production facility. But you can see the videos of all the ideas I've focused, and you can see each of them is titled either for sales reps or for sales leaders. So you've got stuff you could use with your sales team, specifically relevant to what we're dealing with in this virus impacted world, as well as what you can do as managers. It's all free. It's just a resource to help you through this. I hope you take advantage of it. You can also follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn with the videos that we're posting and the stuff we're doing. It's kind of hard to track people on LinkedIn, I found. So we've made it even easier that we have a free weekly newsletter. Just comes out on Friday, and it lists all of the videos I've posted for the week as a simple way that you have a resource to see what's available and what you have to use. These are challenging times. I am impressed with the strength of the CVSN members. I know that you're all working hard. I am sure you've had major disruptions because of this, that you've had personal disruptions because of people's health endangered, and we hope everybody is as positive as possible. But this is also time for you as a manager, and I believe to really lead your team to build an environment so they can motivate themselves. This is why I love the line to say, are you ready to get even better and to sell your way out of this? I hope is a mantra that you pick up as well. I'm honored to be here. I thank you for listening. Angelo, I want to turn it back over to you to thank everybody, and thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Jim, and all the attendees. I hope you can use the takeaways from Jim's presentation today to help your businesses get through this COVID-19 crisis. Obviously, this thing has turned our worlds upside down, and we need to be tough, be good leaders, and know what. And I know that this industry does have strong leaders, and we certainly know distributors are very resourceful and resilient, and CVSN is here to help in any way. We will be hosting, or I want to mention that Jim has got a couple of more presentations, webinars he'll be doing for us in the very near future. So we'll inform you of those. We will also be hosting another webinar next Thursday, April 16th at 11 Eastern Time, and that will feature Dr. Al Bates, and his topic will be meeting the sales challenges in today's economy. Hope you enjoyed the seminar. CVSN encourages everyone to stay strong and use the takeaways from Jim's presentation. Have a great day and stay healthy and safe. And thank you again, Jim.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks, Jim.